us the group, because we get to learn all about all the different varieties of hypnosis and hypnotherapy out there in the world.
Sure.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Michael Mezmer here. I have actually caught some of his shows live, so I'm a bit of a fangirl over here. Michael Mezmer is a clinical hypnotherapist. He holds a degree in psychology from California Coast University and is an award-winning stage hypnotist and illusionist. Michael has toured worldwide, appearing before presidents, princesses, generals, luminaries of the entertainment industry, including Michael Jackson. I was so excited to read that. For his extensive performances for the U.S. military, Michael received a Commendation Medal from Air Force General Brian Arnold, and he is here today to honor us with his, 30 years of hypnosis and hypnotherapy?
Yeah, actually, I started studying probably about 32 years, but yeah.
Wow, yeah. So you know a thing or two.
Yeah, and what I didn't put in that little intro for you was that I am a consultant to the Unger Medical Concierge Group here in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And so I actually work for a doctor under his guidance, and I do hypnotherapy for his patients. And he actually is the doctor, Jeff Unger, who, if you've heard of Ozempic, he brought that to the market.
Yeah.
He's a premier diabetes doctor in the country and in the world. And so I'm very honored that I work with him. So my therapy credits are quite heavy too.
That's fantastic. So I would like to start off. That's a great segue. What was the pathway that led you to becoming a hypnotist?
Well, you know what? That's a long road, as they say. I was touring the world as a magician, and I've been a magician for actually 5 decades. And I toured the world to 25 countries. And while I was touring, I experienced hypnosis in various places. And I was in Asia in particular. And in Thailand, they have what's called the Kinjay, which is where they go into a trance. And they, during this time, it's combined with their religious beliefs. And during this time, it's a vegetarian festival, actually. But during this time, they put these big spikes through their cheeks. They hang weights from them, and they put spikes through their tongues, and they walk through the streets for about 24 hours. And then when they come back to the temple, they pull all these things out, big spikes. I mean, like this big. When they come back, all of it out, and they come out of trance, and there's just minor marks and no blood, no damage to them, which is quite amazing. I saw that live. And then other demonstrations were in Indonesia, where I saw people doing the horse ceremony, where they turn a person into a horse and they eat grass. But the cool thing is during it, well, not cool thing, but the fascinating thing is they're whipping them with a leather whip, and there's welts coming up on their back. And then they eat a light bulb and they chew on the glass. And I knew this was not magic because I'm a magician. I've toured the world doing magic. And so it really fascinated me that afterwards, once they brought him out of trance, there was no blood in the mouth from the glass. The welts instantly went away within maybe a minute or so. That was fascinating. And then later on in Venezuela, where I did a command performance for the president of Venezuela, I saw a stage hypnotist by the name of Ima Buma. And it was sort of like something out of a horror movie, really, because he hypnotized these people. First, he hypnotized a chicken, which is fascinating. And then he hypnotized, which animals you can hypnotize, but chickens are a little hyper. But anyway, and then at the end, during his show, the people would actually be falling off this 10-foot stage. Some were breaking their arms. It was terrifying, but they accepted it there because it was like, I don't know, part of their culture, but it was really bizarre. Anyway, I got back to the States and I decided I wanted to study hypnosis. And so I found the Hypnotism Training Institute in Glendale, California. And Gil Boyne, legendary Gil Boyne, was the teacher and owner of that, also the president of the American Council of Hypnosis Exam. And I went there to study. Initially, I was just going there so I could learn to do stage hypnotism more than anything else. But I became so engulfed in it, or interested and fascinated by it, that I decided to do more. And I eventually did 500 hours of training with Gil. I did an internship, and it was really amazing training. Gil was a very tough taskmaster. You had to really do well if you were working with him. He didn't take anything. He really wanted you to be good or else, So it was tough training, but it was good training because he was a master at the craft, and his transforming therapy, of course, changed the course of hypnotherapy in many ways. Also during that time, Orman McGill became one of my mentors as well. And Orman was the soft side, Gil was the tough, business person, and Orman was more of the, philosophical, spiritual end of it. And so I worked with both of them, mostly with Gil, but a lot with Orman too. He and I were good friends. Great training. And it's sustained me through all my years. I mean, when I do hypnotherapy, I'm always very confident because, Gil taught me to have no fear when working with people. And also he taught me to go with my spiritual side too, which he was very spiritual in his own way, and just let the client lead me and just, that God will take care of the rest. You just deal with it as it emerges, So that's kind of my background in hypnosis. Then I went on to becoming a very prominent stage hypnotist, appeared on many national shows on television. I have done that with magic as well. In fact, I have a show on the Reels channel right now. So
what channel?
the Reels channel.
Okay, great. I'll have to look it up.
Well, do you have Tubi?
I do.
Okay, well, on Tubi, you'll find that you can look up Autopsy, the last hours of. It's a show on there. And this one happens to be about Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy, because they were friends of mine.
Yeah.
And I'm an expert guest on that show. In fact, you'll hear me at the beginning and in between. But if you look at the final season they have on there, it's about episode 9 through 12. I can't remember. But with Roy Horn, Autopsy, Last Hours of Roy Horn, it sounds very negative because it's an autopsy show, but it's not. It's a very positive show about Siegfried and Roy. I wouldn't have done it. And anyway, you'll see me all over that show. It's a really cool show that's on right now that you can watch.
Yeah, I'll totally look for that. And so I was going to ask you, what was it like training with Gil Boyne? But you gave us a pretty good background with that. I'm not as familiar with Ormond, but I am familiar with Gil Boyne's transforming therapy, and use quite a bit of his techniques in my quantum journeys hypnosis classes. But I would love to know, since you are one of the few who does both hypnotherapy and stage hypnosis, and also magic, what are the similarities between these things? Can you find sort of a bridge that connects them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The thing about it is, and I have a little different philosophy about stage hypnotism, in the sense that, first of all, people say, my thing about stage hypnotism is, if it's properly done, then it really is like a group therapy session. Because in reality, what's happening is the people that join me on stage, they have something, a need that they want to fulfill. Maybe it's just to release their tension. Maybe it's to take a little time away from the world. So when you bring people up, if you do it properly, and if you do it in a positive way, and if you do it in an uplifting way, what you're doing is you're doing essentially a group hypnotherapy session. And actually the audience is getting laugh therapy at the same time. So it's really a fantastic thing. Now, I'm not going to say that's the same for all stage hypnotists, because like with hypnotherapy, like with doctors, like with plumbers, not everybody has good training. Not everybody does, some people go to a 2-day seminar, a 3-day seminar, whatever, and they're not well trained, and they may not have the best intentions, because they may have gotten into it simply to make money. I got into hypnotherapy because I really do care about people, and I really do like to help people. And that reflects in my stage show as well, and how I treat ladies on stage in particular, which is another issue with a lot of stage hypnotists that are male hypnotists. And so I'm not dissing stage hypnotists in general, but I'm saying that everything's not equal. Not everybody's trained
Right.
equally. And
There's a level of integrity that you're intentionally bringing forth. So did you get started with hypnotherapy first, or with stage hypnosis first?
No, stage hypnotism first, and then they kind of go hand in hand in reality. But yeah, I became a stage hypnotist first and started doing that. I performed stage hypnotism in Hong Kong, all over the world. But along the way, I continued my training. And became a certified stress management consultant and some other things with the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. And in doing so, I've expanded my abilities. And so, yeah, and eventually, actually, the way I got in with Dr. Unger is I was doing a stage hypnotism show for a fundraiser for a theater locally here. He came to the show, and his daughter was in the show. He never believed in hypnosis. And also a colleague of his who was a doctor was in the show. And they both had incredible experiences and were blown away. And so he was so impressed that that's why he brought me in to work with his patients. And in the past 6 years, I've been doing a lot of work for him, and with a lot of great success rate.
So you're still doing one-on-one sessions?
Oh yeah, I was just there last week. Jeff's concierge medical center.
And so how does magic enter into all of this, the illusionist stuff?
Well, being an entertainer teaches you a lot of things, and being an independent business person, and combined with that, and you learn, important things that can transcend not just the magic or the entertainment on that end, but the hypnosis and hypnotherapy as well. And so for me, they're all one and the same in a sense, because also with stage magic, I'm creating an illusion, creating wonder for people, bringing something magical into their lives so that they may open their imagination to possibilities, especially the young people, So it's really cool to do everything. I mean, I don't limit myself to any one particular thing. I really like to open people's minds into possibilities in life, and that there's more to it than just what's right in front of our eyes.
Right. And having seen some of your shows live, I have to say you're brilliant. You're very entertaining.
Thank you.
And we were talking about this a little bit before I went live, but I think that perhaps my favorite one, because I think I've seen maybe 3 or 4 altogether, but my favorite one was the one where you had hypnotized somebody to be the coyote and another person to be Roadrunner. And there was some sort of trigger word, but every time you said that trigger word, the coyote would chase the Roadrunner and the Roadrunner kept saying, meep, meep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the thing is that people think that it might be false, but we know as hypnotists that it's very real.
Yeah.
And the thing is, those people when they leave, as you know, at the end of my show, I always give suggestions that they're going to have extreme confidence for the coming year. Mm-hmm. So I've had people come back to me, the stories of people I've had adult people come back that were with me 20 years ago and said, you changed my life. One guy was considering suicide and he had a family and everything. He had been in my show, and then I gave him audios. I gave them to him for free because I do that on occasion with people that I know I have concerns for. And he said it literally saved his life being in the show. So, it's not to be taken lightly what effect you can have on people and how you can positively change their lives with the stage hypnosis.
Yeah, and I'd never actually thought of that, but yeah, if you can bring a therapeutic element and you have the integrity to do so.
Well, the thing is, Krista, that most of these people, like that gentleman, would have never walked into a hypnotherapy office or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They would have never done that. But they might get up for a little time at a fair or an amusement park and say, I'm going to try this. And in doing so, it unlocks something in their minds that says to them, I can make a change in my life in a positive way. Look what I did here, and I can't believe I did this.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this newest aspect of your career, the ghost hunting. I am fascinated, and I haven't read the book yet because it only just came out, but I am going to copy this link and put it up so that everybody in here can see it and purchase it if you want. But tell us a little bit about Ghost Trancer.
Well, Ghost Trancer, a Hypnotist Among the Spirits. First of all, the title is an homage to Houdini, because Houdini did a book called A Magician Among the Spirits, Houdini, a Magician Among the Spirits. And so I thought when I wrote it, I wanted to do an homage to him to sort of cover both my hypnosis side of my life and my magic side of my life. But Ghost Trancer really began when I was a little boy, in the sense that my grandpa was very spiritual. My grandpa, he was actually in Wheeling, West Virginia, but Bridgeport, Ohio, across the river, is where he built homes up on a hill, sort of like Walton Mountain, for all of his family. He was a coal miner for 55 years. And he never got black lung, lived to be 90, had a good life. But he believed heavily in God and in spirit, and in angels. And I'll tell you, the thing that really, when I was young, he would talk about these things, and it really influenced my thinking on life, and that there was something amazing out there. And I will share a quick snippet of something in the book. I'll kind of truncate it. But one time, my grandpa, he worked for the coal mines, as I say, and I don't know if you ever heard that song, 16 Tons. It's pretty old now, but it was by Tennessee Ernie Ford, another year older and deeper in debt, all that. But the company owned you. They had the housing for you. You paid for the food from them. They literally got their money back. Really, you were like an indentured servant in some respects. And so anyway, he was down in the mines one time, and he had a mule. These were the days of a mule and a canary and all of that. And so he was doing his work, using a pick on the coal, putting on the mule in the baskets. And an angel appeared to him. This is how he described it. And the angel told him, leave now. And he didn't want to leave because, trust me, the company would not be happy with you just leaving for no reason. But he knew there was importance to this. It really was, something important to him. So he left. he went home. My grandma said to Grandpap, well, why are you home? You're going to lose your position here. You're going to lose. We're going to have nothing. He said, I had to. An angel appeared to me. So they had lunch. He went back. Well, when he went back to the mines, everybody that was on his shift were laying outside on the ground dead, because they had all perished, but the angel had spared him.
Wow. Wow. I wonder if the angels visited them too, but they just didn't listen, and your grandpap did,
It's hard to. He had such extreme faith that he was open to experiencing. I remember when I was little, he would always hear spirits and God talking to him, and he'd say, okay, thank you. And he'd relay it, and so he had this innate ability to sense spirits and sense, he was a Christian, believed in Jesus, all of this. And so I think he just was tuned in, frankly, and he spared. I think my grandpa looks after me. He's one of my guardian angels to this day. But that was how I started to have my mind turn towards the supernatural and what is out there. And as I went along, there's a lot of stories in the book from when I was on cruise ships, long before I was actually a ghost hunter, and things that happened that are amazing. And then a few years back, I was
going to ask, do you feel like you picked up any of his extrasensory perception? Like, is that something that you yourself also have?
I think I do have discernment, power of discernment, and some of that. As far as hypnosis, just on a side note, one of my biggest allies is my ability to size people up. And that comes from my dad, who was an amazing salesman. My dad was a car salesman. He was the top Chevy salesman for 55 years west of the Mississippi. And he could have someone walk in the office, he could tell you if he was a bum, if he was a good guy, he just had a sense that way. Maybe that came from my grandpa too. But with my dad working with him, that's how I learned that aspect, which has been very helpful in my hypnotherapy and stage hypnosis, and even in magic. And also working with buyers and all of that. So there's maybe it is a generational thing and a little different form through my dad to me. But yeah, I do think that there's things about me. For instance, yesterday, I was thinking to myself, it's weird. My exterminator hasn't been out for a while. And all of a sudden, an hour later, he called me, So these are things that happen that I guess I have this ability. And I believe that God kind of gives you these abilities. But sometimes it's like with anything. It's like with hypnotherapy. If people don't listen and get quiet and listen, then you're going to miss a lot, and especially anything with the supernatural realm. But yeah, so I continued having these experiences, and you got to read the book because there's crazy things that happen at sea with Elizabeth Taylor and all sorts of things. So anyway, eventually I decided to what happened was my daughter Ilea loved the Ghost Adventure show on TV with Zach Baggins. And so we got interested in that as a father and daughter. And so I thought, I'd be interested in giving this a shot. So I started doing it. And I think I shied away from it originally because I thought maybe people think, oh, you're weird, or gee, that would disqualify me as a hypnotherapist because now I'm doing something strange, but now it's kind of accepted because of all the TV programs. So I got into it about 6 years ago, I guess. And I started doing ghost hunting. And in your area, I work with the Bozeman Paranormal Group with Elise over there quite a bit. Places.
I've been on a couple of their tours. Yeah.
Yeah, she's terrific. And she has a great team. Joshua, a guy that works with her, is actually deaf, but he senses things in a different way than we can. And so it's really amazing going out with them. But in any case, I have a lot of documentation, a lot of amazing video from Bannock and different places in Montana and all over the world, including Texas and places. And so that's kind of the progression of how I got into the ghost hunting. And believe me, it's a fascinating thing to do.
Yeah, I bet. So it started as a father-daughter bonding thing. I wouldn't have expected that. That's really beautiful.
Well, we also do cosplaying together, my daughter and I. So,
oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, I love to do that. We go, and I'll be the Joker. She'll be Wonder Woman, and we create costumes. My wife assists in creating the costumes, and it's a family thing. My wife is also my partner in ghost hunting, Susie, and she also is my editor, my personal editor for the book. And truly, without her, the book wouldn't exist because, she's an amazing, she's a retired teacher. My daughter's a teacher. My son's a teacher. So I have a lot of intelligent people around me that make me look smart.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to ask you, how do you see the segue between your work as doing ghost hunting and hypnosis? Where's that? Where does that come together? How do they relate to each other?
Well, I think in many respects, it's that discernment, that intuitiveness. that works with both. Also, when I'm doing my ghost hunting, I use a lot of my hypnosis techniques as far as how I communicate with spirits. That's the only thing is I got to learn about ghost hunting. The shows like Ghost Adventures, it's really wonderful TV, but really all the scratching, the evilness, the people so supposedly hurting them, slapping them, all of this stuff I don't experience. When I go into a ghost hunt, I always do a prayer beforehand, and then I always do a prayer after, and I let them know that they have to stay there because I'm now leaving. But when I'm there with my same personality that I'm giving you now, or I give in therapy, where I create a trust factor. And so when I'm communicating with them or have responses from them, it's very much like hypnotherapy sessions because they're still people. And, I think, in my opinion, that there might be demonic issues sometimes in other areas. I don't experience that because of my positivity and my spiritualism, my spiritual beliefs. But when I go into a place, I really do feel that when I'm talking to the spirits, they're willing to react to me because I'm giving them a positive opportunity, but also I don't think they're evil anymore. I think when you go to the next level, your mind's open. You're in a different place than you're on earth. So I don't think, even if you're a murderer, I think now you're seeing the whole picture. And now you're maybe regretting or maybe coming back to want to be able to make a change in what you had done in this world. And I think that that's like hypnotherapy because they're wanting to make a change or wanting to do something they couldn't complete, and you're able to bridge that and help them to do that. So in a very real way, it's like
So you're providing therapy to the ghosts, essentially.
Right.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little teaser and just give us like one of the most surprising or interesting or sort of, shocking ghost hunting situations you've been in?
There's been some really amazing ones. One though happened before I was a ghost hunter, and that was pretty amazing. I was in Las Vegas doing a convention, which I did do for the International Fair Association. They used to hold it at the Hilton Hotel, which is now the Westgate in Las Vegas. And there was Star Trek: The Experience there it was a amusement attraction there at the hotel. And my son Wesley and my daughter Ilea later, she wasn't alive at this time, but my son Wesley and I, big Star Trek fans. I actually had a chance to work with Shatner and some of these people a couple of years back. So did my daughter. Yeah, we just happened to have a connection that was a friend, Diana Hudson, and she got us involved in working with them at conventions a little bit. And so I sat all day with them, and very nice. Jonathan Frakes in particular, Commander Riker, very nice guy. But I had lunch with all of them, and it was cool. But in any case, we were big Star Trek fans. And so my son and I at that time in particular. And so I would always pick up a souvenir from him from the Star Trek experience and bring it home after the convention. He was just a little guy, I think 7 or 8. Anyway, picked up a souvenir, walked out the door, and it was freezing outside in Vegas. It can actually snow in Vegas, believe it or not, but it was very cold that night. And I had the bag, and the lady next to me said, "Oh, I see you've been to the Star Trek experience." Well, I'm on Enterprise, or I was on Enterprise, she said. That was the series with Scott Bakula that was out at the time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I said, "Oh, wow, my son would love to meet you." Now, we didn't have the phones that we have now that we can do this stuff and take photos, so I couldn't take a photo of her and I. We had flip phones at that time. But anyway, so I said, "Oh, wow." Then a car came by really fast because the driveway was in front of us. I was heading to the parking structure. I had to wait for the cars to go by. And I looked back and she was gone. Now, I didn't think anything of it because it was freezing. And I figured she just went back inside. The car distracted me. So I drove home 3.5 hours, got home. And my son said, "Dad," I gave him his present. He was so excited. He said, "Dad, we got the latest Star Trek magazine." I said, "Oh, awesome." So I was looking through that while he was opening his presents. I get to the back page, and there's an obituary for Michelle Waymeyer. She was the lady I had just met 3.5 hours before.
And in front of the parking.
Yeah. And
wow.
She had passed away 2 months before that.
Wow. Too bad
she was in her 30s, and she just died young. And but yeah, I had actually met her literally 3.5 hours before, and she was just like you and I, talking with me.
I love that. I love that story. I would like to open it up to questions real quick, and then we can come back and sort of wrap up a little bit more and make sure that everybody has the link to Ghost Trancer. What was the full title? Hold on, I'm trying to find it.
Ghost Trancer, a hypnotist among the spirits. But
Hypnotist
again,
Among the Spirits, right?
follow that link. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Target, you can go to Walmart, you can go anywhere. And if you look up Michael Mezmer, Mezmer, that will pop up, or Ghost Trancer, and that will pop up. So Barnes and Noble, any of them, any of your major booksellers, you can get it. It's on pre-sale right now, and they'll send it. You'll actually receive it. If you get it from my publishers, you'll receive it on the March 7th, which is the release date.
Oh, okay. So it hasn't even been officially released yet. That's
No, and it's coming from Fayetteville
yeah,
Mafia.
sneak peek.
Yeah, it's coming from Fayetteville Mafia Press. It is not self-published. I'm so proud to be with their group because they have a book out from right now on Alfred Hitchcock, and they have one that just came out on Barbara Streisand. So it's really great to be in that company.
Wow, yeah, that's beautiful. Does anybody have any questions for Michael? He's got quite the varied background. I feel like anything you throw at him, he's going to have an answer for you.
And if I don't, I'll make one.
There you go. Yeah. Yes, Shelley, please.
Yes, Michael, forgive me. I don't know the exact name of what I'm going to try to describe to you, and hopefully that you can give me some insight. You're probably the only one. I've seen one or two other very well-known hypnotists, one in London, one in New York, refer to some type of show, gathering, event where people come together and there's hypnosis involved. It also seems some type of play or play acting as a group. And I've been so curious about this, and I may be all wrong, but that seems to be what I'm hearing about. Can you shed any light on that?
You probably caught me on a question. I really have not heard of that. I'm sorry.
Like hypnosis and improv or something? Like
yes, I'll do some more digging, and if I find out something, I'll send it on to you.
Oh, I know there's one hypnotist that does what he calls hypprov, and it's hypnosis and improv combined. But really, all hypnosis shows are improv anyway. So it's a different framing of it. But in reality, it's, we all look for new ways to market. I guess it's marketing more than anything else. And with our hypnotherapy, with hypnosis, with magic myself, it's always finding new avenues to advertise and market yourself. So when you say you're doing hypprov and hypnosis and improv, well, it sounds very fascinating, like you've been fascinated and open your imagination to it. And so it's a great marketing tool. But in reality, all hypnosis shows have a part of improv in them, obviously.
Sure.
That actually reminds me of a question. Thanks, Shelley.
Yeah.
What indicators do you look for in the volunteers so that you know that this is going to be a highly hypnotizable subject?
Well, there's no one that can't be hypnotized. There's people that are resistant to it, but generally, if people are volunteering, they're not resistant. However, I always say before the show, or not before, but during my opening, I always make it clear that if you're just coming up to make a fool of act goofy, I don't want you on stage. I'm going to know you're not hypnotized. I'll be sending you back to your seat. So the thing is, I don't want, people always say, oh, I bet you really want the most outgoing people. No, I don't want the most outgoing people in the show, because they're going to be the ones that tend not to get hypnotized because they're very focused on themselves. And so for me, I'm always looking for the in-between person, maybe not the shyest person, but maybe just the average normal, whatever normal is, the average normal person that just wants to seek out the experience. And, a lot of times I'll visit with the audience beforehand and I'll get to know people. But on the other side of it, I do have that discernment ability that my dad taught, that I learned from my dad and all that. So I have a gut feeling about people in general. Now, I will say I normally get up about 18 people. I don't like any more than 18. And then generally speaking, I'll excuse 3 or 4 people back to their seats because they're not quite where I want them. And then there'll be a couple more that I'll sort of drag along that aren't quite deep in trance, but eventually my goal is to get them to that place. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the process. And, as far as, there's no way of absolutely knowing who's going to be great, who's not. But when I bring people up, here's the secret. I always see people hypnotized before they're hypnotized. In my mind, they're already hypnotized. So I don't ever see someone as unhypnotizable, because for me, the minute they sit in those chairs or the minute they're in my therapy chair, they're already hypnotized in my mind. It's just me helping them to make that transition. But in my mind, they've already achieved it. It's a psychological thing in my head, Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you. Ren says she could listen to you all day and night. Big smile.
Thank you.
Do we have, oh, Cynthia, yes, please.
Hiya. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to hear you tonight, Michael, and to ask you a question. And just before I ask my question, I just want to say the thing that you just said about you see everyone as being hypnotizable, that is just so powerful because it's absolutely the right attitude to take, whether you're a hypnotherapist or a stage hypnotist or whatever. It's to make to just have it in your own mind that everybody's hypnotizable. But my question to you is, and this is something, because I have friends who see themselves as mediums, okay, and they're very much contacting specific spirits from the outside world. And I'm just wondering, because you talked about your intuition, and I feel I have intuition, but I don't ever contact a single spirit. I believe I contact, because we're connected to everything. So I believe I contact the source. And so I'm just wondering, what's your take on mediumship versus hypnosis and intuition and, contacting individual spirits?
That's interesting. I love your accent. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Northern Ireland.
I thought so. It's so lovely. I just love the accent. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think they're all interconnected. I think they're all the same thing. I think we do it on different levels. I think that again, it's about being quiet and listening to yourself and the things around you and taking the time to make that contact. So I think on whatever level you're on, we're all connecting the same way because I think it's a natural God-given ability in us. I think it's just like breathing or talking or anything else. And I think that some people do it your way, which is more in the general. Some people are just intuition, like, oh, I thought my exterminator, where is he? And then he calls an hour later. Some are directly speaking with specific spirits or entities or whatever. So I think that it's just all this. I think all comes down the same way. It's just different roads heading that direction.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you. I more or less think the same thing, but I just wanted your opinion on it because you're much more experienced than I am. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I love your accent too. It's very lyrical.
Yes.
Terry, yes. What's your question? Oh, you're still muted, darling.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Hi,
Oh,
Terry.
thank you. This is really fabulous. I am just really curious when you said if you could talk a little bit more about animals. Did you say animals could be hypnotized? And I do a lot of work with animals as well. And I was wondering, can you help a dog not, get over anxiety and things like that?
Well, I think absolutely. Any good animal trainer will say that they may not call it hypnosis, but they certainly have, horse whisperers, all of that, essentially locks back into what we do as hypnotherapists using our voice, lullaby phrasing. I don't know if you're familiar with that's a big part of what we do. Like when a mother talks to a baby when it's born, we're using lullaby phrasing. And I do that a lot with my ghost hunting as well. But the deal is that, okay, here's an example. One time I was at a fair in Arizona, actually, in Gila County, Arizona. And sometimes the stages at fairs can be anywhere. And so I was at a fair where the steer pens were just probably about 30 feet from me. And there was a dog also that guarded the steers. He was buddies with them. Well, during the show, when I was doing the induction part, for those that are not really in hypnosis, that means the part where you place them in a trance. Then all the steers went to sleep and the dog went to sleep during the show. Then we did the whole show and I have a lot of loud music in that show and they stayed asleep the whole show. Then after I did the emergence part of the show at the end, all of them woke back up again.
Wow.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you. Great.
I
Yeah,
have
so-
a friend who plays guitar and sings for the cows at her ranch. And yeah, and they do the same. They just like sort of get really relaxed and lay down and listen. We have a question in the chat box from Hannah saying, in hypnotherapy, do you work with the Esdale state at all? And if yes, for what purpose?
I would have to know what that state is.
That's just the super, super deep, can't talk, can't move. You have catalepsy, wherever you move the person's arm, it stays there, that sort of thing.
Oh, I do a lot of that. Of course, a lot of
Okay.
street. Another aspect of what I do is street hypnosis. And so many times I'll get people to do amazing things just on the street. And I enjoy street hypnosis. Why? Because it's a challenge. Because you're walking up to people and you say, would you like to try something? You tell them you're a hypnotist. And then you go into some of these things where you do arm and eye catalepsy, all of that kind of thing. So I can get people rapidly into that state. But in regard to different levels of hypnosis or states of hypnosis, I don't really believe in that. I think that hypnosis is a natural state, and that, you know, you can do excellent therapy with a very light state, sometimes better than a deep state. With stage hypnotism, as a matter of fact, you don't want them to get very deep, because if they do, they're not going to be very animated, and they're not as quick to respond to suggestion. So for me, and Gil was this way too. He didn't really believe, oh, now we're in the Delta, now we're in all these things. It wasn't an issue. It was like, we're going in hypnosis, and when we get there, we're going to do what we're going to do. And it doesn't really matter how deep someone goes or how light they are, as long as they're in that state and open to ideas and to their imagination is open, then they're going to get benefit. So I suppose I do what she's asking all the time, especially with the street hypnosis and other, and probably hypnotherapy. But it's never a concern of mine, because the depth of hypnosis or the depth of trance really doesn't affect the quality of the therapy.
I feel like it's different for each person, but it's also different for each person each day.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So one person can go into a super deep trance one day, and the next day it'll be a lighter one. I just always, I kind of go with, well, that's what they needed. That's
right.
You know,
right.
I just trust
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You open their imagination and let them flow with it. And then wherever they go, as long as they're at a place that you can assist them, that's all that's important. So
I'm going to ask for a secret. What is your go-to induction for street hypnosis?
I use pretty much a technique, the same technique Gil did, which is—
somebody asked the same question just now. Okay, Lynn, I think you're a little bit psychic. Go ahead. She put it in the chat.
It's really more of an instant induction, and it's developing trust rapidly. And then really, I mean, I don't have to do much more than just say sleep and really focus on them. I have them look in my eyes. They're a bit fixated on my eyes, take a few breaths, and then sleep, and boom, there they go. On stage shows, oftentimes when I'm at an event where I can only do 40 minutes, I have to do instantaneous rapid induction as well. And essentially I do a hand lock. And after I do the hand lock like this, you know, then I just go down, push down, say sleep. And then I put them right in trance. I don't spend a lot of time with a lot of wordage or any of that, because I can snap them. Actually, with analytical people, subjects, if you want to call it, I don't like subjects because that subject means it's a pejorative, but with people that I hypnotize that are analytical, especially the Asian culture, rapid instantaneous induction is much more powerful and much more effective to get them to the point where I can do the therapy. If you have them because Asians use a lot of numbers, they think in numbers a lot. And so if you take your time doing this fractional induction, you're probably going to not fail, but not really get them where you need them. So rapids can work much more effectively, or instant induction with analytical minds. But yeah, with street hypnosis, it's all about instant induction and using dramatic wordage and using the power of your essence, really exchanging an energy exchange with them to be able to get them quickly into trance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you ever, I'm sure you have, but tell us about this, get just those random people that are like, you can't hypnotize me, but they want you to try, like to prove it to them or something. What happens in your stage situations when you run into that?
Well, here's the thing. You put a lot into that statement. I never try, I do. But the deal is that I always say to people like that, you're right, I can't hypnotize you. And they say, what do you see? I told you. I said, no, I can't, because it's self-hypnosis. Mm-hmm. Either you want to hypnotize yourself and make it happen, or it's not going to happen. I don't make you do anything.
Brilliant response. I love that. I love that. There's several people that are watching in the Facebook group. They're not in the Zoom. So I just want to reach out. You guys, there's 4 or 5 of you. Feel free to add your questions or comments there, and then I can read them off to Michael. Does anybody else have any other questions for Michael? Don't be shy. Lynn,
Can I
did you have another
Sure.
question that you wanted to ask?
You don't even have to ask about hypnosis. You could have asked about things that have happened to me in my years in film and TV and live entertainment. Who have I met? A lot of interesting people through my career. So if you have any questions, we're talking hypnosis, but I'm happy to talk about any subject matter that applies to what I do.
Yes,
Okay.
Lynn.
I'm really interested. I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. So I'm really interested in what you did with him.
Well, I was performing at the world famous Magic Castle in Hollywood, California. And I was backstage and the MC came back and said, well, I want to let you know, Michael Jackson's in the audience tonight. And there was actually a talk show host in LA named Michael Jackson, a British gentleman. So, oh, you mean the radio host? He goes, no, Michael Jackson, the Michael Jackson. And so he was in the third row with his entourage. This was during the Off the Wall era, prior to Thriller. And because I've been around a while. And anyway, he loved magic. He loved magic because, he always wanted to be childlike and enjoy things that he didn't get to enjoy as a child. So he loved magic. And so he smiled and applauded the whole show. Naturally, I was pretty uptight the whole show because I'm thinking, here's one of the greatest entertainers in history sitting in the audience watching me perform. And so I wouldn't say that I was, I guess, nervous. I don't like the word nervous, but I like the word excited because that's a positive. And nervous starts with an N, which means negative. Excitement's a positive take on that. So I was very excited that night and went out, and I couldn't help but, of course, glance at him a few times during my performance. And it was very exciting because I was doing my escape act, and I think he was really, really enjoyed it. Something he hadn't seen before, escaping out of straitjackets and boxes and things, because I'm known for my escape work. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. I did not meet him because when they come to a place like that, they simply want to enjoy it. Like if they were just a person in the audience, they don't want to be approached. But boy, it was great having him in the audience. It was a real honor that night.
That's great. I love that story. So I am fascinated with how a person decides to become a stage hypnotist personally, because it's a little terrifying, right? At least for me. So like that very first show, like what was the impetus to do that?
I had studied with Gil, and a friend of mine who was a ventriloquist, David Zacarte, he asked me, we were up doing the Cantaloupe Festival up in Nevada. And he said to me, they'd like you to do a hypnosis show at the end of the night. And I said, well, because I was doing my magic, but I was ready. And I should tell you, my background in show business goes back to age 5. My brother is a Tony nominated actor on Broadway. My older brother played drums for Chubby Checker and Little Richard. So I've been around show business. In fact, the first big star I ever met was when I was 5. It was Judy Garland. So I've been around show business all my life. And so age 7 was my first paid show. I was in a show with a famous star by the name of Connie Stevens that you may not know now, but she was very famous for recording in movies. She was married to Eddie Fisher, who was also married to Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds at one point. So in any case, I was in Wizard of Oz as a lollipop boy. And so I got paid. That was my first paid show. I started doing shows when I was 5, but that was my first paid show. So I've been doing theater all my life and show business all my life. But I'd been doing magic for this Cantaloupe Festival. And he said, can you do a hypnosis show at the end of the night? So ended up, they paid me. I did just an additional thing to my magic. I did the hypnosis that night. The show, I have it on video. It actually went picture perfect. And I just did it off the cuff, no long planning. And in any case, that was my first one. And I've never stopped since. I'm sort of like it was a racehorse ready to get out of the gate and get running. But this is the thing about a lot of people doing stage hypnotism. There's so many aspects to it. And I see all these stage hypnotist mills where they're teaching people to be stage hypnotists. And the thing is, there's so much more to it than just learning to do a show. Learning to be an entertainer, having theatrical training, learning how to perform. These are the things that make a good entertainer, whether you're, it's like with hypnotherapy, whether you do past life regression, you do whatever, you have to be a good hypnotherapist to begin with. Well, with hypnosis on stage, you have to be a good entertainer to begin with. And not everybody's going to be an entertainer. And so if you're not, probably it's not your business to get into, although many people do just because they see the money and perhaps they, feel they could do well. And some people do. But again, be 2 rungs, be a great hypnotherapist or hypnotist, but also learn how to be a great entertainer. I mean, I studied acting with George C. Scott and a lot of important people through my life. So I bring all that to what I do on the stage.
Brilliant. So you started off as a magician. Before
Theater, as in theater. But
theater,
yeah,
then magic, then stage hypnosis, then hypnotherapy, then ghost hunting.
yes, I've been doing magic for 5 decades. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
and I also studied with great people with magic initially too. So the thing is, always get good training from the best people and make sure they're the best, not just because they say so, but because you can, they can prove it through their works,
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Well, and you studied with Gil Boyne, and he's, one of the top legends. So there you go.
Well, when I performed for Gil at the American Council of Hypnotic Examiners, for you folks that don't know what that is, it's an amazing association because they really do regulate hypnotherapy worldwide. And I continue to have to take 30 hours of continuing education every year to keep my membership in the American Council of Hypnotic Examiners. I'm also a past president of that association, which was really an honor because I was in the footsteps of Gil, who was the creator and first president of that association. So it's quite a good group. And if any of you have that kind of training and want to be a member, I recommend it because they're an awesome organization.
Great. Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much. We have a question from Peggy. Yes.
Hi. And my teacher studied with Gil. So I got Gil stuff and Gil videos, and man, you were lucky to train with him. It's really great.
For sure.
So when you do ghost hunting, do you throw in mediumship as well?
I'm not
the ghosts are there.
I'm not a medium. I just open my ears and I sit quietly. For instance, I was sitting I was at the old Montana prison in Deer Lodge doing a ghost.
God. I hate that place.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I was there. I had special access. I had been doing my shows at the fair in town, and so they gave me special access, and I was there by myself until one night till 3 a.m, witching hour at 3 a.m. And so
You're a braver soul than I, sir.
well, I was up in the tower. I was up in the tower too, where that guy.
Oh my gosh, I can't even get within like 500 yards of that place. I get a headache.
You know what? They're just reaching out. They're just trying to, as I say, be able to finish some business that they weren't able to in their life and maybe change into a positive way. So I don't fear
Yeah,
it
it's
at all.
not really scary so much. It just feels very intense, oppressively intense. So
It'll make the hair stand up on your arms at 3 a.m.
yeah,
I actually had the best photo of a spirit orb there that I've ever captured.
wow.
But in any case, I was sitting and answered the question a little bit with a mediumship. I sit there quietly and I really listen. I've talked about this many times during our talk today, but that's really the secret. I don't have any special abilities that way. So I was sitting in the women's prison and I asked them to take me to the most violent or the most active cell. So the lights were off. It was 3 a.m. I was sitting on the bed in the women's prison. I knew the name. I can't recall it right offhand now, but it's in the book. I knew the name of the prisoner that had been in there and who they said was pretty much active in there. They closed the door of the prison cell, locked it down, and everything was going great. I was sitting there talking quietly, using hypnosis, hypnotherapy technique and talking quietly. And then eventually I got this feeling. And then I heard in my ear, now it could have been audible, it could have been just in my mind. I'll never know for sure. But I heard a female voice say, "Get out." And so I immediately left. I thanked her. I left quickly and got out of there. But I can tell you, it was very dramatic. So mediumship, however you want to define it, perhaps I do that. Perhaps I don't. For me, it's just intuitiveness, it's discernment, and it's being open to listening. So maybe that is mediumship in a way. I mean, I don't study that. That's not a specific part of my training, but I suppose I do that in my own natural way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
listening.
different. We
Okay.
all have different. We all have different gifts, and like you could hear them, or just feel the presence. That's really fun. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Would you like to regale us with a story? I mean, I don't know who all that you've worked with, so I mean, I'm not quite sure what questions to ask as far as that goes, but I think that we all love those stories. So just regale us with maybe one of your favorites.
Boy, there's a lot of them. I mean, wow.
Well, you got 10 minutes left, so.
Well, you know, I mean, one of my favorite movies experiences I ever had, I worked in Raging Bull with Robert De Niro, a lot of things, but one of my favorites was actually Chuck Norris. He's really a great guy. I did a movie called The Octagon with Chuck, and I had been in martial arts quite a while and won some competitions. And so, and also my first wife, she's not passed away, but we're separated now, but she was very, very beautiful lady. So we went to the audition. We had martial arts background, but they also liked her. And I have to give her credit. She said, well, if my husband can't do it with me, we can't do it. So they put us both in the film. And so Chuck was the greatest guy. We were doing a lot of martial arts. I was a ninja in the film. And by the way, he's a great American, great human being, just a terrific person. But so we were doing the movie and did a lot of martial arts. The last night we were walking out, I hadn't had a chance to chat with Chuck. I worked with his brother, Aaron, because he was the martial arts, person on the set. He would teach us the stunts we had to do. But leaving, and I saw Chuck in the dressing room and getting his makeup on. And I thought, oh, should I bother him, But I went up and said, hey, Chuck, I didn't get a photo with you. He stopped the makeup person. He said, come here, brought me in the makeup trailer. And he took pictures with me for as long as I wanted. He was so nice. He was very gracious. I met Roger Moore one time at a thing my brother was performing at. And that was before he did James Bond. And he said, oh, I have a movie coming out called Live and Let Die. And you'll have to see it. I said, oh, I'll be seeing it. I love James Bond. He was very nice. I was a golf caddy for Lee Majors one time. I was 17.
Man.
Yes, I was 17 and we were doing this golf caddy thing. And his bodyguard was doing magic all day for me. And I thought that was so cool because I was into magic. But at the end of the day, I said, Mr. Majors, what are you up to? He said, well, at the end of summer, there's a show coming on ABC and sort of a combination of James Bond and a superhero. It's called $6 Million Man. And he said, watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. I said, oh, thanks. And I said, could I have your game ball? He threw it to me. And in fact, I still have that game ball on my desk here. And on the game ball, it has Owen Marshall and Big Valley on it. So that was before $1 Million Man. But so that was another great experience. But really meeting Judy Garland was amazing at age 5. That really started my whole imagination.
Do you remember that very well?
Oh, yeah. It was at the Thunderbird Hotel in Las Vegas. And at that time, they had a cabana in the middle of the rooms. And stars weren't worried about being attacked or the paparazzi or any of that at that time. And Judy was in that cabana and the pool was out from her room and she had a dining area outside. And so my brother, who was of course a big fan of hers, he was 10 years older than me. So I was 5, he was 15. And we swam with the kids, with Joe and Lorna Luft in the pool because we'd all come out and swim like all kids did. So anyway, my brother said, let's go up and knock on her door. And he had a letter to give her because he was going to ask her to sing The Man That Got Away in the show that evening. And so, because we were going and we had to wear ties and everything when I was 5 and go to these shows. So anyway, knocked on the door, her maid opened the door and there she was sitting getting curlers in her hair, getting ready for the performance. And he handed her the note and she waved and said, oh, it's so nice to see you boys and everything. So very friendly. I can remember it just as I'm seeing it right now. And then that night we went and sat in the showroom. We got in the front row because my oldest brother was playing drums in the lounge in the Thunderbird. And she said, I want to dedicate this song to these young men here. And so she dedicated the song to us that night and sang. And I think that really made me start thinking, I want to be in entertainment. It was overwhelming, the emotion, looking at Judy Garland, looking at us singing that song,
Wow. Yeah. I could see how that would be very inspirational for sure.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been quite a treat. And I'm just so honored that you graced us with all of these wonderful stories. I'm going to just ask one last time if anybody has any other questions that they would like to ask Mr. Mezmer before Shelley, there we go.
Just a quick one, Michael. I don't know if you're quite old enough, but did you by any chance ever see Pat Collins, the hypnotist in Los Angeles?
I never saw her live, although I could have, because I was in Lake Tahoe one time. I guess I couldn't because I wasn't of age. She was in the lounge there in Lake Tahoe at Harrah's, and you had to be 21, and I wasn't 21. But that didn't matter sometimes because, like with Siegfried and Roy, I was underage, but Siegfried put me and my friend in the lighting booth to see their show at the MGM when we were just 17. So sometimes you get by that. But with Pat, I didn't. I have seen her in the movie that she did with, she did a film, and I also have seen her Lucy TV show appearance. And I also have seen her on Johnny Carson, but I never saw her in person, although I heard her in there and I really wanted to see the show, but I wasn't of the age to be able to get in the showroom at that time. I have some collectibles of hers. I have a glass from her club. I have matches from her club. I have a lot of things, and one of her albums, record albums too. Of course, she hypnotized people like Marlon Brando and people like that in her show. So, you know, she was the celebrity. She was the only superstar, really the only star of hypnosis ever in reality that people knew in the public. I mean, Pat Collins, still people remember her, although I would include Kreskin in that as well, because even though he doesn't say he's a hypnotist, says he doesn't believe in hypnosis, he started out with the National Guild of Hypnotists and used to do hypnosis shows. So Kreskin would be probably the other, maybe most famous hypnotist ever known by the public.
Nice. Thank you. I did get to see her, I think, in the early to mid 70s with my mom.
Wow.
And but I appreciate your other references. I'll look up some of those other shows, and she does have a lot on YouTube and a documentary that was made about her life as well.
Lucy's show is really fun. You'd really enjoy it. And
Great.
it's on compilation. I also have some that I sell, but I'm not marketing today. But I have the DVD of those. But anyway, yeah. So I watch the Lucy one. You'll have a good time with it.
That's, yeah, I'll totally look that up.
I
You've
met
given us a lot of food for thought.
I was gonna say I met Lucy, by the way, and I also worked with Lucy Arnaz, so I have a little connection. Well, anyway, we could talk all day.
Yeah, well, and actually, we're going to get a chance to talk to you again in 2 weeks, guys. We're having the mastermind squad, and Michael Mezmer is one of 3. We're also going to, I found 3 stage hypnotists that get along. So I thought that was amazing. That was almost magical unto itself. Jim Kellner and Lisa Kay. I can't pronounce her last name very well. And she kind of does the Western circuit as well, Montana, Wyoming, that sort of thing. So yeah, the 3 of you, and then we're just going to be able to ask all sorts of questions. Send me your questions in advance if you could. And all 3 of them are stage hypnotists. And I think you and Jim are also hypnotherapists. I'm not sure if Lisa is. She might still do one-on-one sessions, but I know that you and Jim do. So we're going to get another chance to pick Michael's brain and hear his fun stories in 2 weeks. Tune in on March 15th, same time as today.
Yep. But don't forget, buy a book, because it's really cool. You guys would really like it. And I want to thank my David and Scott at Fayetteville Mafia Press for giving me this opportunity, because without them, the book would not exist. They're the publishers.
And just for anybody who showed up a little bit late, who can't see that in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and pop that link in one more time.
Thank you.
If you scroll up a little bit, there's also a link to donate $2 if you like these bi-monthly live events that we do. So feel free to do that just to help offset the planning, the time, the emails.
What a deal. What a deal. That's great.
$2. I know. It's like half of a Starbucks, a quarter of a Starbucks.
Right.
So thank you so much, everyone. I will also make sure that we put the link to your book in the actual group for anybody who is watching the replay. I got a lot of people asking for the replay because they weren't able to make it. And we also have a pretty large following on the other side of the planet, but they're not awake yet. So
Right.
Yeah, your Australian and New Zealand fans aren't going to be able to see this until a little bit later. But it will be available for all time in the Facebook group. And with Michael's permission, I can also pop it up into YouTube if you would like.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Michael. It's been quite an honor. Barbara says thank you. Anastasia says thank you, Michael and Krissa. Shelley says great gathering. Thank you. Cynthia says thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
Absolutely. My pleasure too. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. And I'll see you in 2 weeks, Michael.
Bye-bye. See you then.